Now, I'm not one who likes to refer to every single person who is part of MAGA as racist. I don't like to do that, but unfortunately, time and time again, these people that are defenders and representatives of Donald Trump, they just prove themselves to be racist. And in this clip, we are going to see a heated exchange in which we can see a MAGA shill, sorry for the pun, you'll understand that when you see his surname, but just repeatedly be obtuse and not be able to stick to the point simply because he can't stick on topic because it doesn't fit the narrative that he's trying to push. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end. Let's get into it.
Live at the table, Isaiah Martin, Mark Lepresti, Terry Schilling, Christine Quinn, Ellie Honig, and Camille Foster. Americans with different perspectives aren't talking to each other, but here they do. Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Tonight, the Trump administration is expanding its mandate on immigration, from targeting the so-called worst of the worst to changing DHS procedures, pursuing new immigrant populations, and identifying new frontiers for its operations. Today, the Trump administration reintroduced a new rule to accelerate deportations with the goal of reducing what it's calling a backlog in the asylum system. Under the new rule, officials can now refer asylum seekers to immigration judges without a formal interview. It's a change that could affect as many as 450,000 cases, and it effectively bypasses a step in the asylum process. The change comes as the Trump administration is making plans to target, arrest, and deport Haitian migrants on a massive scale. That's after the Supreme Court sided with the Trump administration last month. Hundreds of thousands of Haitians and Syrians living in the United States lost their temporary protective status this week. Now, according to CBS News, an expanded ICE operation includes plans to deport Haitian migrants in Ohio, where Haitian communities in cities like Springfield, which you might remember, have been targeted by the Trump administration. But as fears of imminent ICE actions in Ohio communities grow, the state's Republican governor had this to say.
Well, it's a mistake. It's not good for the United States, and it's not good for the state of Ohio. These are people who have helped Springfield really come back. Springfield has been making a real comeback. The Haitians who are living there and employed there, they came there to work, and they came there because there were jobs that were not being filled by other people. And so if you talk to the employers in Springfield who are employing the Haitians, they will tell you that.
Now, before we open it up to the table here, I want to invite you at home to join the debate. Head to CNN.com/Abby. You can weigh in there. We'll get to some of your comments throughout the show. Christina, I want to start with you on how the strategy is shifting, because just a few weeks ago, remember, a couple of ICE-involved shootings that left multiple people dead. The administration was kind of on its back heel. Now they seem to be really redirecting their attention to people who they are making illegal, like TPS holders who came here legally and are now without status as of this week. And also, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but expanding deportations and arrests to airports where people who are in pending status are being arrested as well. No longer the worst of the worst.
Right. I mean, that's all we've heard repeatedly throughout this administration is we are going to target the worst of the worst. The Democrats want to keep dangerous criminals in this country. But that all proves what we've all been saying. That's not true. They just want to make these target numbers that they've come up with. And if you think about this, about what they're doing with the Haitians and Syrians and others, we're going to send people who were here legally back to countries that are plagued with violence, that they are in extreme danger if they go back to these countries. And these folks are working and contributing to the economy. This has nothing really to do with keeping Americans safe or rooting out career criminals. It has to do with meeting some made-up mandates that the president has been put out there. And it all, I think, also relates to trying to distract from what happened in Minneapolis and what happened with those two murders. And there's real questions about whether those individuals were here legally or not, and whether whether they should have even been targeted. And the asylum process is one that has worked well in this country. It is not easy. I work with folks who are trying to get asylum. It is not an easy process. And to circumvent that undercuts kind of what is at the foundation of this country, that you can come here seeking freedom if you're in need of it.
Yeah, I mean, Ellie, the asylum issue has been a target of conservatives for a long time. They think that it's too easy to claim asylum. And maybe they are right to some extent, that the asylum system is so broad and the adjudication is so slow that it does leave this massive backlog. But what they're doing now is basically putting all of those people before these immigration judges who are part of the Justice Department. And I think people might forget that months ago, the Trump administration, they purged a lot of immigration judges who they thought were too willing to grant asylum. So they're going toward a group of folks now who are very much aligned with the Trump administration's vision for cracking down on asylum.
There are many problems with the asylum system. They have existed for many years. However, what the Trump administration is now doing is really treading right on that line of no due process, because what they're doing now with this rule change is essentially saying, of the 1.4 million or so pending asylum claims, we're going to take 440,000 of them who have been here for more than a year, and we're essentially going to take you out of the normal system, put you in front of a judge who can summarily dismiss your asylum case, and then you'll be gone. And the thing I want to point out is the decisions that the administration makes and the Supreme Court makes have immediate and vast consequences. And we're seeing that now in the asylum context. We're seeing that now with the temporary protected status decision as well. And to Christine's point, there is a fundamental, not just tension, but conflict between, on the one hand, we're going to deport the worst of the worst, and on the other hand, and here's a daily quota. You have to deport 2,000 people a day. Those two things do not mesh.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's an important point. I mean, when you have quotas, you're basically saying a dragnet is okay.
Well, look, I think the results speak for themselves. This is one of the areas where President Trump is doing strongest and Republicans are doing strongest is on crime. They have a 14-point advantage over the Democrats when it comes to cracking down on crime.
But we just discussed that we're not talking about criminals here.
Right. But this is all part of the concerted effort.
Who are
really those Haitians? There's no evidence
actually by any stretch of the imagination.
There's no evidence that there is a significant number, if any, of the Haitians who are here on TPS who are the worst of the worst or criminals. This isn't about crime.
There is plenty of evidence that there is crime related to all of this.
Really?
This is, by the way, this is temporary.
You know what's really interesting about
where's
this?
the evidence?
Where's the evidence?
You know what's so
This
fascinating?
is putting so much stress on our entire system, on
You
the
know what's
healthcare system, on
fascinating
the
about
education.
this?
Well, if I
Where's
could
the
speak-
evidence of the
So
crime?
you just switched from crime to
Right.
healthcare
Well,
to
why-
education.
He's all over. He's dream shaking.
No, but because it's all tied. You can't say that immigration does not impact all these other sectors.
All I'm saying is, where's the proof?
What I'm saying,
That's all I'm saying.
We just said that we're bringing in people from very violent countries. We have increased crime under the Biden administration during those 4 years, period. I don't think this is really up for debate.
It's very much up for debate.
Here's the reality here, because there's this thing in this world called facts. And the facts is that only 5% of the people that you're deporting are violent, convicted criminals. Those people that are the worst of the worst, violent rapists, gang members inside of our country. Everybody agrees that those people need to be deported. But you're only deporting 5% of violent, convicted criminals. Let's go compare that to when Barack Obama was in office. 92% of the people that were deported under interior removals were convicted criminals. And of that 92%, 81% were deemed by the federal government as the worst of the worst. So we went from deporting that many of violent people inside of our country to only 5%. You guys are not focused on the real violent threats that are inside of our country, and that's evident.
Yes, we absolutely are.
So,
do you understand 5%?
So as I mentioned,
5%?
Terry, as I
Is 5% allowed? Which number is bigger?
It was
Terry,
not
hang
just
on a
about
second.
crime.
Hang
It
on
was
a
about
second.
education. It was about the healthcare system.
Terry,
it was about
just
Now
a
we're
second.
talking about education.
What we're talking about here, and as I pointed out, the group of immigrants that we're talking about here are highly vetted. Asylum seekers, TPS seekers, and in the case of what they're doing at airports, these are people who have pending immigration cases. According to the New York Times, they're going to these airports, and according to an immigration lawyer, they're casting a net for the people that they want to detain that is far wider. This lawyer has 4 clients who were detained at airports in the last 10 days, including 2 women who recently married Americans and are in the process of obtaining permanent residency through their spouse. one of the husbands was with his wife when he was taken into custody in Burbank, California. These are people who are basically waiting for the federal government to adjudicate their legitimate pathway to a green card and citizenship. And the Trump administration, because it's easy and frictionless, is just picking them up at airports. Again, how is this addressing the issue of crime or the worst of the worst?
Well, I think the issue, Abby, is the scope of the problem with Biden's open border policies. We did allow a lot of people that should not be here in an unprecedented scale to come into this country.
So why
I'm a descendant of immigrants to this country. I believe that we are founded in this country on. I believe that people should be afforded. People are actually that are under TPS or asylum status. They are afforded certain elements of the Constitution and due process. I think that should take place. But what happens is when the pendulum swings in either direction, Abby, too far, the response is often commensurately too far, and I think that's what we're seeing.
So is that what you're?
Right now.
I mean, look, I'll
not a justification.
I'll take
it's an
your
observation.
acknowledgement that this is too far. Is that what you're saying?
I think in some instances it is, but I also don't think that we should just automatically assume that there will be a wholesale deportation of those 450,000 Haitian immigrants.
Well, what happens when you revoke their status? What do you think happens?
There would be a review.
But what was the reason for doing that?
If there's no interview, how's there a full review?
As I said, when you have a problem that is exacerbated by the open border policy.
What is that open border policy? Can you define what that means?
I can tell you that there were 3,000 murders committed by illegal aliens.
I'm asking you, what
talk to the families of Lake and Riley. Talk to the families of some of these people that should not be dead right now and are because of those policies.
What policy?
Letting people flow over the border.
How did they let? There was still immigration officers. What are you talking about?
They were instructed to allow those people to come into this country.
Define the policy, though. Are you saying that immigration officers weren't there along the southern border during the time that Biden was in office?
I think it's well established. I think it's well established that the restrictions were lessened under the Biden administration.
We're mixing a bunch of different issues at the same time, right? Because what we're talking about today are specific groups of people. TPS holders are people who are here because they are fleeing a terrible situation in their home countries. Now, as we pointed out, the United States has a level 4 travel advisory for Haiti. We are telling Americans, don't go there because of the risk of crime, kidnapping, terrorism, unrest, and limited health care. In the midst of that, the Trump administration has revoked status for TPS holders, basically overnight made those people ineligible to work, essentially made them illegal in this country, and is now saying, you got to go back to that country that you were fleeing from, even though the situation has not changed. So that is what we're talking about.
Well, let's go back to what TPS stands for. I think everyone should know it stands for temporary protected status. It's not meant to be a pathway to citizenship. It's not meant for any of it. Yes, they should go back and fix their countries.
Why?
What's so wrong with Haiti?
They should go back?
What's so wrong with
We have a level 4 travel advisory. What do you mean what's wrong with Haiti? The State Department says it's not safe to go.
Okay, so America has to let anyone come here.
This is a specific amount of individuals on TPS.
These people have, the Syrians, right? The Syrians.
No, we're talking about Haiti right now.
It's been over for almost 2 years. We're talking about TPS right now. You keep trying to winnow the window of what we're talking about,
but
just because it benefits
600,000+ people are currently being affected right now.
These things, yes, and we're bringing them over. They've been here. We've
hold
given
on,
them
Terry.
protection temporarily.
But Terry,
you think they should go back to a country that the United States is saying is not safe?
The situation in Haiti hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. You give temporary protective status when things like that happen. If things in Haiti were different, then you might have an argument. But we're sending them back to a day. When the situation has changed.
Taking people from these violent countries into our borders just because they claim asylum. I just don't
understand. They claim temporary protective status.
Let's get back to the basics.
Terry, I'm gonna stop you there because again, you keep mixing things up. Where temporary protective status and asylum are not the same process. They're not the same thing. I also want to read this viewer comment from CNN.com/Abby that says a person having temporary status does not equate to a person who is a criminal. And I think that is in response to what you were saying. But go ahead, Ellie.
When you win the presidential election, you get an awful lot of power and control over the way we do immigration enforcement, about what DHS does. Courts have recognized this. people who are subject to deportation proceedings do not get the same due process rights as a criminal defendant would, as a civilian would, and a citizen would in a court. That's just a fact. There's a separate question, though, about is this a smart use of limited federal resources, right? This administration has more than doubled the number of ICE enforcement street agents. That's their prerogative. And now that we're there, now that we have this influx of resources, I think the policy question is this a good and efficient use of our resources to be picking off people in the airport who are pending the process, to be taking people who many of whom have been here lawfully under TPS, not all, but many, and to say, well, we're going to throw you out. Wouldn't you rather, or let me throw it out there, would you rather have our resources dedicated to throwing out 10 law-abiding people, other than the fact that they're here illegally, people who've not committed crimes, or one person who's here illegally and has committed crimes? I'd rather have one criminal.
Correct.
Yep.
And that's the same argument that Barack Obama made when he was in office, and that's specifically why there was such a strong focus on getting rid of violent convicted criminals. That's what he did. And so ultimately, again, we deported more people under Barack Obama, and we were focused on violent convicted criminals. I think it's common sense to go after people that commit violent crimes.
Let me just make one note. I mean, we played the Mike DeWine sound from the beginning, but here's a Republican governor making an economic case for his own state that this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense for their economy. It doesn't make sense for their communities. Why is that not a factor?
Well, let's back this up. Isaiah,
No, I mean,
I just want to ask a simple question. It's the same thing. Well,
we're not changing the subject. We only have a couple of seconds left.
I dismissed it, Mike DeWine. He's not a very popular governor across. Look.
So you're dismissing what he has to say because you don't like him?
No, I'm dismissing it because he's not a successful governor, and we have these serious problems.
Successful or not popular?
Understand, real quick.
So the economic effects don't matter.
We have to go. We have to go, and you're not answering my question. So we're going to leave it right where it is. Okay. Next for us.
So there's so many things here that I really want to speak about, but the thing that I'm going to focus on more than anything is the point I made at the top of this segment. Don't you guys think it's so interesting that these people can't just help but their racism to come out? You see, everything that it is that everyone spoke about, the fact that Haitian individuals have temporary protected status, but he consistently kept linking immigration and Haitian individuals back to violent criminals. Did you guys see that? Because what this is and what this comes down to is really straightforward. For these guys, it's never, ever, ever been about safety. It's never been about that. If you take a look at so many different things, you take a look at Project 2025, for example, you take a look at these things and these ideas of the great replacement theory, all of these different things, you will understand why the immigration, the way that it is that this administration is tackling immigration, that's exactly the reason as to why they're doing it the way that they are. That's exactly the reason. And it's not something that it is that they're doing on accident. This is something that they are doing on purpose. They're doing it on purpose because of the fact that they are trying to get as many black and brown people out of the country as they possibly can. Why? Because they're scared of the way that it is that things are going, that if it continues and the immigration continues as it currently is, they're scared that unfortunately what will happen for them is Republicans won't get back into power. And that's the reason as to why you see so many Republicans addressing black and brown people as violent criminals who are raping and abusing our women. That's why you see what it is that you do. But when you have actual congressmen that are doing things like abusing their wife, pulling a gun on their wife, and breaking the collarbones of their children, allegedly, you Republicans are completely silent. Because like I consistently say to you guys, it's never ever been about safety. That's simply just a crutch just to be able to push their agenda. All it simply is about is making sure that they get as many black and brown people out of the United States of America as possible. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section on this exchange. Isaiah Martin and Abby Phillip genuinely done a good job. But the last point that I'll leave it on, did you guys see the son of immigrants to the right of Isaiah Martin trying to pull up the ladder behind him? People like him are the absolute worst. You're in a good position. You're able to win at life. So now, because you've made it, you now want to pull up the ladder behind you. It's absolutely disgusting. But it's no surprise. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section, but I'll hype the video up. See you guys in the next one.